The reason this pregnant woman answered a simple online advert will send chills down your spine. What happened inside that suburban basement is more twisted than any horror movie. You must stick around until the end to hear the one sentence the victim whispered to her attacker that changed the entire case. Under the quiet skies of Longmont, Colorado, a seemingly normal spring morning in March 2015 was shattered by an act so brutal that it would haunt an entire community for years. Behind the doors of a modest suburban home, the boundaries between compassion and cruelty dissolved. It began innocently, a simple Craigslist ad offering free baby clothes, but what awaited the kind-hearted, expectant mother who answered that ad was not generosity. It was madness dressed as motherhood. Michelle Wilkins was 26 years old, radiant with the warmth of impending motherhood. She had been carefully preparing for her baby girl, whom she had already named Aurora, a name that symbolized dawn, renewal, and light. Her small apartment was slowly transforming into a nursery filled with tenderness, folded blankets, pastel baby clothes, a rocking chair waiting for lullabies. She had dreams of holding her child against her chest, whispering promises that every mother instinctively knows. But fate, in its cruel twist, led her to a stranger whose own dreams had curdled into delusion. The stranger was Dynel Lane, a 34-year-old woman who, for more than a year, had been weaving an elaborate lie. She told everyone she was pregnant. She took photos of a growing belly that never existed. She crafted social media posts about doctor visits that never happened. She even held a baby shower, accepting gifts from friends who believed her story. Her boyfriend, David Ridley, believed her too so deeply that he rearranged his life around the child he thought was coming. But Lane's fantasy had an expiration date, and as her imaginary due date drew near, she began searching for something or someone to make it real. When Michelle saw Lane's ad offering free baby items, she thought she'd found a bit of kindness in a world that could sometimes be cold. The two exchanged messages, and soon, Michelle found herself at Lane's doorstep. Inside, the atmosphere was warm, even welcoming. Lane chatted easily, showing her around, sharing motherly conversation. For an hour, they seemed like kindred spirits, two women bound by motherhood's anticipation. But under that calm exterior, Lane's mind had been quietly descending into something unrecognizable. The shift came subtly. Lane mentioned she had more items downstairs. Michelle followed, unsuspecting. The basement was dim, cluttered, filled with old boxes and discarded objects. As Michelle turned to thank her host, a sudden, sharp pain exploded at the back of her head. A lava lamp, heavy and filled with shimmering liquid, had been smashed against her. Confusion clouded her senses. She tried to reason, to understand, to believe it was some mistake, but the storm was already raging. Lane struck again, her hands turning from giver to destroyer. She maltreated Michelle in the neck with the broken glass, the metallic scent of blood filling the air. The struggle was feral. Michelle fought to escape, to plead, to breathe. "Why?" she gasped. "Why are you doing this?" But there was no logic left in her attacker's eyes. Lane pressed a pillow over her face, suffocating her pleas, her hands trembling, not from hesitation, but from obsession. Then, in a voice colder than the blade she held, Lane whispered the words that froze Michelle's soul. "If you love me, you'll let me do this." The knife plunged. The world went red. The room swam in chaos and silence. Lane cut through Michelle's abdomen with surgical precision and desperation, removing the tiny body of baby Aurora 7 months developed. Fragile, innocent, unfinished. Michelle's body fell still, her skin ghostly pale. Lane, drenched in blood, lifted the lifeless infant as if she could transfer love through delusion. Hours later, against every rule of biology and probability, Michelle stirred. Consciousness clawed its way back. Every heartbeat screamed agony. Her hands trembled, slick with blood. But she reached for her phone, her one tether to life. The numbers blurred as she dialed 911, whispering through pain that she had been cut, that her baby was gone. First responders arrived to a scene beyond imagination. Michelle was lying on the floor, intestines exposed, her body a testament to both cruelty and resilience. Paramedics worked frantically, their hands red with her blood, but steady with determination. One officer later testified that when he lifted her shirt, he could see her insides. She was conscious, weak, fading, but alive. Meanwhile, Lane arrived at a nearby hospital carrying the baby wrapped in a towel. Her story was that she had miscarried. She cradled the lifeless child and refused to let go, insisting to doctors and nurses that the baby was hers. The hospital staff, unaware of the nightmare that had unfolded elsewhere, treated her as a grieving mother. For hours, she lived inside her lie. But the truth was catching up. Police traced the 911 call, entered Lane's home, and were met with a scene soaked in horror. The basement floor was slick with blood. The walls told a story of violence, not compassion. Upstairs, medical tools, fake pregnancy items, and baby clothes completed the picture of delusion. The evidence left no doubt. The woman who had pretended to be a mother had tried to become one by theft of flesh and blood. Investigators pieced together her deception, the social media posts, the fake ultrasounds, the shifting stories about the baby's gender. She had fooled friends, family, even her partner for months. Each lie had drawn her closer to the inevitable collapse of her fantasy. And when reality came knocking, she replaced it with madness. Michelle, recovering in a hospital bed, became the voice that justice needed. She had endured the unendurable and survived to speak of it. When she testified, her composure stunned everyone in the courtroom. Her body bore scars, one along her neck, another across her abdomen, but her voice carried a quiet strength. She did not scream, she did not curse. She spoke with clarity, recounting every moment. The jurors listened in silence, some wiping tears as she described the terror, the pain, and the heartbreaking moment she realized her child was gone. Throughout the trial, Lane sat still, her expression unreadable. Her defense claimed the act was impulsive, not premeditated, an act of mental breakdown, not calculation. But the evidence told another story. Months of lies, fake appointments, a baby shower, a planned trap. Prosecutors presented it all, dismantling every illusion Lane had built. When the verdict came, it was unanimous, guilty. The sentencing hearing became a moment of reckoning. The judge, Maria Birkenkotter, read the sentence with deliberate weight 100 years behind bars. The court listed each count: attempted life-taking, unlawful termination of pregnancy, first-degree assault, all carried to the maximum extent. The prosecutor, Stan Garnett, described the case as one of the most vicious crimes he had ever encountered. Lane's defense attorney spoke of her remorse, her lost son, her supposed fragility, but even their words seemed hollow beside the sheer brutality of her act. Then came Michelle's turn to speak. Standing before the court, before the woman who had nearly unalived her, she delivered a statement that silenced the room. Her words were calm but piercing, full of sorrow and clarity. "You left me to knee multiple times," she said. "You cared more about your fantasy than my right to live, and my daughter's right to live." She spoke of pity, not hatred, of healing, not vengeance. And then she held up a photo, a picture of baby Aurora. For a moment, even the air in the courtroom seemed to pause. When the gavel fell, justice had spoken. Lane wept not for her victim, but for herself. She would spend the rest of her life behind bars, a prisoner of her own lie. The case left the entire country asking how someone could descend so far into delusion, how a lie could grow so large, it demanded a life to sustain it. For Michelle, the journey did not end in that courtroom. Healing came slowly. The scars on her skin faded long before the scars within, but she refused to let the tragedy define her. Instead, she spoke out about resilience, about compassion, about the thin line between trust and danger. She became a voice for survivors everywhere, her name no longer just tied to a crime, but to courage. Today, Dynel Lane remains imprisoned, her story etched in the darkest corners of true crime history. And Michelle Wilkins, the woman who refused to die, continues to live in defiance of everything meant to destroy her. The ghost of Aurora lives through her, not in sorrow, but in purpose. The story of that day in 2015 reminds us that evil often hides behind ordinary smiles. That trust can sometimes open the wrong door, but also that the human spirit, when tested to its limit, can rise unbroken. Michelle's story is not just one of survival, it is a story of rebirth. From the blood-stained basement of a suburban home to the quiet dignity of a survivor's strength, this case stands as a haunting reminder of how deep deception can run and how high courage can soar. In the darkness of one woman's cruelty, another woman's light refused to go out. So now you know the disturbing truth behind this twisted case. I need to know which part of this story shocked you the most. Tell me if you believe the punishment truly fit the crime. Share your own thoughts on how such deception could go undetected for so long in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Make sure to follow for more true crime stories that expose the darkest sides of human nature.